An example of this would be all the List Pepper series, the Serrano, the Wasabi, and the Habanero, which you may find in many of the name brand clubs today. The other trend is toward lighter and lighter shafts. Many of the new shafts in today's drivers are tipping the scales in the 50-gram range instead of the 60-gram range since titanium drivers exploded on the market. I'll also give you a heads up for next year. More and more shafts are trending to weights in the 40-gram range. So if you're in the market for a new driver in the immediate future, or if you're a club maker making sure you're following the proper techniques and trends, then you may want to pay close attention here. Most golfers look for a new driver in the quest for more distance, and there are only a few ways to accomplish that. One way is making the club either longer, lighter, or both. Lighter and longer provides more leverage with less effort and can increase one's speed and distance. This would be the same if you or your customer is looking to upgrade to a lighter shaft or a different shaft model than the stock shaft that came with the driver. Now, not only do you have to look at the weight of the shaft, but you might have to pay attention to the balance point as well, because if you don't, you may wonder why the swing weight is so light and consequently the club feels very stiff. In those cases, you may want to reconsider the length if you want to maintain a standard swing weight and shaft flex. That is, unless you or your customer wants to gobble lead tape all over the club head. So to recap, the reason why there are no standards when it comes to driver length is due to the multitude of different shaft weights and balance points available to consumers today with the trend toward lighter and lighter clubs. Another factor that's rarely spoken about is final grip sizing, and probably because we have standard grip sizing charts that are clearly defined. For example, men's standard grip size measures 0.9 inches, 2 inches below the grip cap. As mentioned earlier in this webinar, manufacturers are encouraged to produce products that are going to fit the average male or female golfer. Grip manufacturers are no different, as they need to stay abreast of the goings-on in the shaft industry. The thing to remember is someone took the time years ago to establish standard size charts by using what was the most popular shaft and grip at the time, which was a 58 core size Golf Pride Green Victory grip onto a True Temper Dynamic R-Flex taper tip shaft, which had a 580 butt diameter. And how can you pick up two clubs with the same grip and listed shaft butt diameters, yet one feels better or different than the other? Well, let me tell you, it could be the final grip size, and you may not even realize it. See, one of the first things a golfer feels when they pick up a club is the grip, but it usually goes unnoticed, unlike many of the other factors such as length, head size, face angle, just to name a few. Neither the True Temper Dynamic shaft or the Green Victory grip is still sold to this day, yet the grip sizing charts live on. Plus, the sizing chart is often based on one single point of reference located 2 inches down from the edge of the grip cap. This leads me up to the reason why the same grip may feel different on two of the same size shafts in that shaft geometry. The diameter that a manufacturer may give for their shaft is based on the raw, uncut shaft. Rarely do we ever play the full length of a shaft, so some is usually chopped off the butt end. In the case with the taper tip Dynamic R-Flex shaft, the grip will actually cover a few steps down the shaft where it becomes smaller. Then there are the popular shafts out there like the NV, NVS, DVS, BS, RIP, and Voodoo shafts. While you may not see this listed in their product literature, these shafts are manufactured with what's called a constant taper design. A few other manufacturers do this as well. Well, at face value, they appear to have extremely large butt ends in the neighborhood of 0.62 and 0.63 inches. This is just at the very butt end, though. Take a look at the diagram on this slide for a moment. As mentioned, we normally cut off some of the butt end. The black area shows where the grip is going to be installed onto the shaft of our normal 45-inch driver. The shaft tapers quickly, and by the time the shaft is exposed below the bottom of the grip, it only measures roughly 55 thousandths of an inch. In contrast, the shaft shown below it is an Apollo graphite shaft. It possesses an extremely long parallel butt section where it will remain the same 600 thousandths of an inch from the butt end of the raw and cut shaft to a point well below where the shaft would exit the bottom of the grip. So what is the significance? The significance is that the shaft geometry dictates final grip size. At first glance, what appears like the larger butt end of, say, Autola NV shaft with its 630 butt end will actually yield a smaller grip size than a smaller size shaft with the exact same grip. Another assumption is that all grips taper at the same rate. And what have we learned from the golf industry? Don't assume anything. While many grips taper at the same rate, it's important to know that all don't. And yes, the vast majority of grips sold past and present taper smaller as they get closer to the hand. There's a select group of grips that are being marketed today that have a reduced amount of taper or even no taper at all. This is to allow the lower grip to be larger so it's easier to release the club. The difference can be seen in this slide by the blue dotted lines. So if the grip feels different or better, maybe there is a plausible reason, and that could be the geometry of the shaft, the grip, or even both. Well, I hope in the brief period of time that we've had today that I've explained why having standards or maintaining them is not always cut and dry, as it would seem to be. We also need to realize we need some diversity. So there shouldn't be standards for everything. Not every golfer can comfortably use the same equipment as everybody else. However, for some things, the consumer relies on having so-called standards to make their buying decision. When something doesn't feel or fit right, part of the reasoning could very well be the lack of standards beyond our control, such as the weight or stiffness distribution, component weight, or geometry. When you consider all the possible combinations of heads, shafts, and grips on the market. Then there are certain standards like lie or loft. When you want them, manufacturers have factored that into the club head design or club combination so the clubs will produce a familiar ball flight. Well, that's a wrap. Let's turn this back over to Rob, and we'll answer your questions for the brief amount of time we have left.
Great, sensational amount of information there, Jeff. Thank you so much for that. Okay, folks, you can start typing your questions in.